So, I recently saw Blue Beetle, a film outside of some great family dynamics, the Latino representation, and some nice commentary on gentrification, is a superhero film so bland, so generic, so creatively bankrupt and unoriginal, you'd think the script was AI generated. You've got the hero who doesn't initially want to be a superhero, but decides to be the superhero by the third act. You've got the villain who's just the same as the hero, but bad. You've got the giant, ugly, mind-numbing CGI fights, the dumb, weightless nanosuit shit that removes any of the reality or tangibility of having a real physical suit the character actually has to wear around. There is literally not an original bone in this entire movie's body. It's a giant, boring CG overload superhero film, and it bombing so hard right now I think is representative of a massive superhero fatigue people have been feeling lately. Especially in a post-Endgame world where every Marvel project with the exception of No Way Home and Guardians 3 have failed to generate nearly as much hype, the box office numbers, or critical praise of anything that's come out leading to the Infinity Saga. People are tired and bored of superheroes. Everybody knows what to expect from these movies, and with Blue Beetle especially, to me, it was just a wake-up call with how unbelievably standard it was. Just how completely overdone and oversaturated this entire genre has become. And it was also especially bad to me because a few nights prior, I rewatched The Batman for the first time since theaters, and it blew my fucking mind.
Let's play a game, just me and you. Any of this mean anything to you? Something's in my ass.
Like I said, the superhero genre is the most cluttered and oversaturated it's ever been, and films like Shazam, Quantumania, The Flash, and Blue Beetle, all from this year, flopping at the box office, the numbers are evident of the fact that people are tired of these movies. So in order for a new superhero movie to strongly stand out against the rest nowadays, it's gotta present something entirely new, or just be impeccably well made. The Boys is the biggest superhero show out there because of how hard it satirizes and flips the common superhero tropes on its head, and uses the soups as vehicles for real-world political and social commentary. Across the Spider-Verse from earlier this year is one of the most gorgeously animated, visually brilliant films I've ever seen, and has a script and character writing strong enough to back up its visuals. And last year's The Batman, the topic of this video, is a film that completely redefines and perfects what a solo superhero story is capable of, in reinventing and rebranding a tired, played-out character for a new era. The Batman is a film that seems like it just came out of nowhere. In an age of big studios getting so caught up in bullshit multiverses and setting up sequels decades in advance and franchising to no end, we got this entirely new, fresh, slower-paced, straight-up detective thriller with a tone closer to David Fincher's Seven or Zodiac than anything to come from the MCU or even the Zack Snyder Batman and Superman movies before. It uses its computer-generated effects as an enhancer and not a total crutch to lie on. It's brooding, its tone is oppressively grim. Gotham City has never looked better on film before. It's one of the most gorgeously shot, visually striking blockbusters, maybe since Mad Max Fury Road. The action is heavy-hitting and intense as hell. I remember I felt that 3-hour runtime a little when I was seeing it in theaters, but on a rewatch at home, I found the film and its story completely engaging and gripping all the way through. That 3-hour runtime really flew by. Zoe Kravitz is so fantastic as Catwoman. Every scene she's in is great. John Turturro as Falcone is also awesome. There's some real star power in this film. Robert Pattinson delivers what I think is the best Batman performance there is. Yes, even more so than Christian Bale. And definitely better than Michael Keaton. The intense wear and tear on this character, his unstable mental psyche and physicality of being Batman, he portrays everything so perfectly. He completely becomes the role. I still remember when it was announced Robert Pattinson was going to be Batman, and all the dumb internet chuds who only watch comic book movies lost their shit over it, but I was so fucking stoked. Oh my god, they're gonna get Edward to play Batman? This movie is so stupid and ruined. Watch Good Time, watch The Lighthouse, watch The Devil All the Time. Robert Pattinson is an intensely talented actor, even though those films very much tainted his reputation. The film nails everything about the Batman aesthetic. He's shot with such intensely imposing framing, and he looks absolutely incredible in the suit. The shadows, the darkness, he really comes across as an animalistic vigilante. All the little gadgets and devices he uses are great, but he always feels like a real person. He's not really superpowered in any way. He constantly gets the shit kicked out of him, and the only time he tries to fly in this film with his wingsuit, it ends up like this. Also, the Batcave actually has bats flying around. And while the tone is so memorably dark and dreary, it doesn't forget to be a goofy and fun comic book movie too. Bruce Wayne here in any other movie would be so over-the-top emo that it would feel out of place, but here it just works. Paul Dano hams up the Riddler so much, almost to a fault at points, but I love it.
No! This is not how this was supposed to go!
Colin Farrell as well gives such a goofy, fun performance as the Penguin, and he's a blast to watch in every scene he's in. Also, the makeup he's in is fucking incredible. If I didn't know beforehand it was Colin, I'd have no idea it was him playing the Penguin, and I just assumed they got some crazy, fucked up looking Italian guy to play him. And yet, with how goofy it can get at certain points, Matt Reeves commits to playing everything so intensely straight, which gives the film such a great, memorable tone to it. There's no dumb fucking Marvel humor or, oh, so that just happened, one-liners. It's fucking great. And the best part to me about The Batman is that even though there will be sequels and a Penguin miniseries all coming out afterward, the sequels I'm excited for, The Penguin not so much. This film works entirely as a standalone piece. No dumbass scene where he randomly goes to Justice League headquarters or opens an email where a bunch of other superheroes get teased. The Batman is entirely in its own universe. It's just Batman, it's just Gotham, and that's all we need. The Batman is the boldest reinvention of the character since Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins. Bruce Wayne is no longer the charming, yuppie, lovable billionaire who's a vigilante crime fighter on the side. Now he's a grim, emo, mentally disturbed sociopath who's addicted to spreading fear among those he deems as wrong, and whose real persona is being Batman, and he's just Bruce Wayne on the side. Let's be real, if Bruce Wayne really existed, we would fucking hate him. He's a billionaire nepo baby who, instead of spreading his wealth around to make Gotham a better, safer place by donating or creating services for people in poverty to get aid so they don't have to resort to crime or illegal measures to make ends meet, he doesn't do any of that, but instead he chooses to dress up like a bat and go around beating the fuck out of people because he thinks that's the better course of action to take. This is the only Batman film to date that I can think of that actually acknowledges that Wayne is an intensely privileged person who definitely suffered after the death of his parents and becoming an orphan, but he didn't really suffer as much because he was still in a multi-million-dollar mansion and being looked after by the entire city, which ties into the Riddler's whole motivation for wanting to kill him, as he felt betrayed by the city and its officials because of the conditions they let Gotham's orphanage fall into, while the corrupt mayors and other officials kept rolling in the dough.
All they could talk about was poor Bruce Wayne.
Bruce Wayne, the orphan. Living in some tower over the park isn't being an orphan. Looking down on everyone with all that money. Don't you tell me.
Bruce Wayne has always had an undying faith in the city officials and Gotham PD to do what's right for the city. He just swoops in at night without a care in the world and deals with all the criminals running around, as if they act independently and aren't products of their own environment. Over the course of the film, Batman's belief in Gotham's officials is called into question more and more, as the Riddler goes around killing corrupt higher-ups in Gotham and exposing their true nature afterward. The beloved mayor, responsible for the biggest crime bust in Gotham history with the Salvatore Maroni case, is exposed as a morally bankrupt fraud who frequented mob joints and slept around with the women there. The The chief of police was also a drug supplier on the side, making sure that there's an endless, continuous source of drugs, or drops, as they're called here, flowing through Gotham to keep the police department busy, trying to solve a problem that they themselves created. Which, definitely doesn't happen in real life all the time. It's totally fictional. Gotham's DA is corrupt and gets paid out by the mob to ignore certain cases. Batman realizes more and more during the film that the problems with Gotham lie with the corrupt and morally bankrupt people at the top, rather than the petty criminals on the ground floor that are just products of the wear and tear that Gotham leaves them in. A perfect, definitely intentional metaphor or allegory for America as a whole. And Bruce Wayne's struggle with his newfound information about how horrible the people he once respected were causes him to question himself and his own actions. He realizes things aren't clear-cut good guys versus bad guys anymore, and his own morals begin to reflect that. Bruce Wayne is someone who believes that if you get caught up in crime, it's your own fault for it, and any bad thing that happens to you is just the consequences of your own actions. After meeting Selina Kyle, someone who lives on the ground floor of Gotham, who was raised and lived through endless poverty and misfortune, and was forced to work in unsavory spots out of necessity, flips it on his head.
I thought you were vengeance.
Your friend got involved with the wrong people. She didn't know any better. Maybe you should have explained it to her.
What the hell is that supposed to mean?
It means your choices have consequences.
Jesus Christ. Choices? Whoever the hell you are, you obviously grew up rich.
He finally realizes that, as a billionaire yuppie nepo baby, things are in fact more complicated than it seems. He sees throughout the film how the regular people of Gotham despise people like Bruce Wayne, which beforehand was completely unknown to him.
Donation to the cause made dear to his heart. The Gotham Renewal Fund, our city safety net.
What good's a safety net? Didn't catch anybody. Didn't help my daughter when she needed it. I can tell you that. Guy was just another rich scumsucker. He got what he deserved. Know what I mean? Hey, don't I know you?
Bruce Wayne. Mr. Wayne. Mr. Wayne.
As much as I love, and I mean love, The Dark Knight, the narrative presented in that film is a much more straightforward good versus evil story, without much depth past that, which is perfectly fine. It is a comic book movie after all. The Joker is purely evil, an agent of chaos whose only goal is to spread as much fear and paranoia around the city as possible. And Batman, alongside the city officials, are entirely good. They're crime fighters wanting to put an end to the evil in Gotham once and for all. And it's pretty much just that. Just look at Harvey Dent's arc. He flops between entirely good patron saint of Gotham to evil Joker associate right away. He's good, and then he's evil without that much convincing, and there isn't much overlap between the two. And this is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It is still a superhero comic book movie, summer blockbuster after all. In terms of the narrative depth, it doesn't need to be The Godfather. But in The Batman, the social landscape of Gotham is flipped on its head completely. Bruce Wayne is doing what he deems as right, which is prowl around the city at night and spread fear among the lower-class criminals in an attempt to save the city. Meanwhile, the real crooks and criminals at the top can continue to be the real problems, and that's where the Riddler comes in. The Riddler in this film is presented as basically the inverse of Batman, where instead of targeting lower-class common street thugs, he goes after the more dangerous upper-class criminals. The mayor, the police chief, the DA. He targets everyone he deems as the real threats to the city in albeit much more extreme fashion. And because of how they both act out their vigilantism in their own unique ways, it leads to the Riddler thinking the Batman is on his side. Throughout the film, Batman inadvertently helps out the Riddler and his cause by accidentally exposing many of Gotham officials the Riddler is trying to get to. He gets the DA to confess his crimes. He literally brings Falcone, the snitch responsible for the Maroni bust, to the light, allowing the Riddler to kill him. And he thinks Batman's down with killing Bruce Wayne until Batman reveals it was all a misunderstanding, and the Riddler's true master plan was kept under wraps the whole time. This dynamic back and forth between Riddler and Batman allows for a much more interesting dynamic than just say, bad guy wants to destroy Gotham, and Batman's gotta stop him. As much as it's a cliche to have the villain say, him and the hero are the same,
you and I are not so different.
It really works here because they really are. They're both vigilantes with traumatic pasts who view their costume personas as their real selves, and they're forced to conform and act like different people in public.
Look at you.
Your mask is amazing. I wish you could have seen me in mine. Isn't it funny?
All everyone wants to do is unmask you, but they're missing the point. You and I both know. I'm looking at the real you right now.
I also like the concept of basically just turning the Riddler into Jigsaw. It's a fun change to make with the character with all the more serious adaptations of him. But what affects Bruce Wayne the most is when the Riddler exposes that his father, Thomas Wayne, inadvertently is responsible for the death of an innocent journalist, and has ties to the notorious Gotham crime boss, Carmine Falcone. Learning this creates the strongest change in Wayne's character, completely fracturing his world and causing him to have a total identity crisis. How can he continue to be Gotham's harbinger of justice if his own father was a murderer? But after Alfred explains the full story to him, that it came more from a misunderstanding that Carmine wanted to control Wayne, this whole realization causes Batman to change how he views everything. He learns that good people are capable of doing bad things, and that the world isn't as cut and dry, good versus evil, as he once realized, and that him generalizing everyone as either good or evil is entirely counterproductive and wrong, and that he should start to view things as more nuanced. Throughout this film, Batman is constantly being hit with new things that broaden his perspective completely on the world and cause him to change who he is as a person, and as a symbol of Gotham. Selina explains to him that desperate people will do anything to survive out in Gotham, and most of these people are victims of their environment, and more people, often than not, will have to turn to unsavory criminal places for safety and security, because the city's own systems and higher-up officials have failed them. And that's something someone from such a high place of privilege as Bruce Wayne will never understand. He learns from the Riddler that the higher-ups in the city officials and politicians tend to be the real problem, just as much as the actual supervillains going around killing people are, and that people like his father, a genuinely good person, in moments of desperation and weakness, are capable of making enormous mistakes. He learns that the world, and Gotham City, is vastly more nuanced and complicated than he could have ever known before. And after being exposed to these truths, he decides to change for the better. At the end of the film, after saving the new mayor of Gotham, someone who seems to be incorruptible and a real proponent of actual change in the city, he chooses to shed the cold-hearted, vengeance and hate-fueled Dark Knight persona and opts to become the city's savior instead, or a new representation of hope for Gotham. Realizing that to pave the way for real change and reform in Gotham's systems, he must stop embracing its darkness and, metaphorically or literally, turn towards the light. I also really love how this film ends, choosing to leave Selina and stay in Gotham because he knows Gotham is as much an integral part of his life as being Batman is, and he can never truly be rid of Batman. Also, it reminds me a whole lot of the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man's ending, which is forever and always my favorite superhero movie, so that's just the icing on the cake. I feel that taking a much more introspective approach to Batman as a character and presenting everything as much more nuanced is what makes this the definitive live-action Batman film in my mind, and the best one overall. The Dark Knight is absolutely a masterpiece. It's one of the most well-made, gripping, and exciting comic book movies ever, as well as one of the defining films of its era. But just how the Batman's whole story comes together here in this massive, sprawling journey of change, and the more nuanced views on morality, plus the character-focused detective story, really puts it ahead for me. Also in this one, more than any other Batman movie, Gotham City is a character. Everyone is tied to the city, and the whole story revolves around it, and this movie completely brings Gotham to life. It just looks so fucking good. This whole movie looks so fucking good. Like, compare this shit to any fucking Marvel movie out there, and it's like going from a Disney Channel original show to a primetime HBO series. Fucking hell, it's gorgeous. I have high hopes for the sequels whenever they come around. We are gonna get another Joker, surprise surprise. There is this deleted scene with him that I'm really glad was left out of the final cut. But after seeing Barry Keoghan in The Killing of a Sacred Deer and The Banshees of Inisherin last year, he's one of my favorite newer actors currently working, so I'm sure he'll have his own really great, unique take on the character. It's just that you can't top Heath. You just can't fucking do it.
How about a magic trick?
I'm gonna make this pencil disappear. It's gone.
And you also got the Joaquin Phoenix Joker in his own movies, and fucking Jared Leto pops up every once in a while. We are definitely starting to get Joker overload.
Well, I'm the Joker, baby!
And that Penguin series, I love the Penguin as a side character in this movie, but a whole miniseries about him, I don't know about that one, but I'm still definitely gonna watch it. My hope is that they start doing some villains that haven't had a live action debut yet in a Batman movie. Calendar Man, Mad Hatter, Mr. Freeze.
Let's kick some ice.
Or a more serious take on Mr. Freeze. Any of those guys would be great. I'm really hoping we get to see Man-Bat, but like that Batman Arkham Knight Man-Bat. That would be fucking awesome in one of these movies. Some sources are saying we're gonna get Clayface and Two-Face for the Batman Part 2, and hopefully it'll build towards being an adaptation of the Long Halloween storyline since Joker's already been established. But whatever we get, whatever happens, as long as Robert Pattinson's in the suit, Matt Reeves is directing, and Greg Fraser stays as the cinematographer, I think we're in good hands. But good luck topping this movie. It's such a banger. Y'all, this movie is so fucking good.
Something in the way.
Oh, I forgot to mention the score. When that shit goes bomb, 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 bomb. Oh my god, it goes so hard.